Let's start with Domas. How much concern should fans have about his 27 turnovers over the last 4 games?
Fellas, thank you for having me. Happy Friday. Yeah, I mean, as well as Domantas Sabonis has played this year, I think he was due for a couple of down games, and obviously you don't want him to have career high in turnovers on back-to-back nights. That's never going to make you feel good, but that's not who Domantas Sabonis is. I think that we all know who he really is. He's not that high of a turnover guy, and everyone's human. They have down games, but he was doing a little too much. I mean, the Kings trying to go down the middle a little too much against Toronto, who has a lot of length, and they really couldn't do much in the paint, and both De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis were trying to kind of force it down low, and it didn't work out. So hopefully that can obviously turn the page and trim down those turnovers. But yeah, 17 turnovers over 2 games. I will knock on wood, but I would imagine that we won't be seeing that again from Domantas Sabonis this season.
We were just talking about an article by John Hollinger over at The Athletic where he says that the Kings shouldn't get too crazy at the trade deadline this year. How aggressive do you think they should be? How aggressive do you think they will be ahead of the trade deadline, Frankie?
I mean, I think they'll be aggressive as far as trying to address what they need. I don't think they'll be as aggressive as going out and trying to make a big splash and going to get that maybe a third star. I don't know if they're going to try to do something like that right now. They've been playing so well, and Wednesday's game aside, they have been playing very well over the past couple of weeks. They've won 7 on their last 10. I could see them going out and making a move to upgrade the backup center position. To me, Miles Plumlee's a name that I think could be had for cheap. I've been seeing reports that the Hornets could even buy him out eventually, but the Kings have a lot of second-round picks. Maybe the Hornets take a flyer on 1 or 2 of those, but I think the Kings will try to upgrade backup center, defense for sure, but I wouldn't imagine that they'll try to part with any of their guys. I mean, Harrison Barnes has been so important to this team and has been playing so well lately, and while his value might be really high right now, I think the fact that Monty McNair is now locked into a contract, there's the possibility that Harrison Barnes maybe could stick around a little longer after all. I think he's a guy who's very calculated, and obviously he's going to do what's best for him and his family. But now that Monty McNair and Mike Brown and De'Aaron Fox are all aligned over the next 3 years after this season, maybe that kind of can bolster the chances of him sticking around. But I wouldn't expect anything too huge, just kind of rounding things out, and especially on the defensive end.
Frankie Cartoscelli with us. Frankie, this bench from distance, shooting wise, not great. How I don't know if I want to say desperate, but how urgent is that need to try to find some shooting off the bench, especially given Malik Monk's last couple of months?
They need it. They need someone to step up. Trey Lyles has done a good job of stepping up while Malik's been going through his rough patch, and it's been a rough patch that's gone on for quite some time now. But I know that Mike Brown is going to keep riding with Malik and letting him try to figure this thing out, and he did have a good start to the season. It's just outside of the first month or so, he's kind of struggled from the field, but the playmaking is there. He's been very good off the bench as far as finding his team. He's having a career high in that regard, but he needs to knock down shots. The Kings need offense off the bench, especially when De'Aaron Fox is up the floor, Domantas Sabonis, or both, which is rare, but there have been instances where they both cannot be on the floor at the same time. You need someone to step up. Malik Monk was that guy. Can he get back to that point? I think so. Mike Brown thinks so, but I know that Terrence Davis is somebody who could be moved in the next couple of weeks, but it's very possible Mike Brown looks to him for an offensive punch when things are kind of stagnant. And the Kings do have a guy like that off the bench, which is nice, but that could be another under-the-radar move they look to make over the next 2 weeks. Maybe someone that hopefully could score and play defense, and that'd be the perfect scenario. But I'd imagine if the struggles continue, maybe Monty McNair feels a little more pressure to add a scorer instead. But, you hate to see that from your bench piece, who was a Sixth Man of the Year candidate for most of the season to this point. But he's going through it right now, and he needs to work through it.
Has Trey Lyles solidified his spot in the rotation, or is that all still fluid?
Well, I think he's a Mike Brown guy. I think Brown really likes Trey Lyles, what he brings, and how versatile he is. He really can play 3 positions, and the fact that he can play backup center if the Kings are having zero production from Rashawn Holmes and Chimezie Metu. I think that's something that he's done a couple of times. And obviously the ideal scenario would be to have Rashawn Holmes produce and have he had a nice game a couple nights ago against Oklahoma City, but I'm not sure if that's going to continue. Obviously, he's not really comfortable in a backup center role, but Trey Lyles, you don't want to roll out there at backup center all the time, but he's a good piece out of the bench. I mean, I think we talked about it before on here, but his contract right now is looking like a real bargain. I mean, I think he's been shooting 50% from 3 over the past month or so. He's knocking down shots. He's rebounding the basketball. he's been a good piece off the bench, especially with Malik Monk struggling. I mean, I think that he's definitely solidified his role, whether it's the power forward spot. He's played some spot minutes at the 3 when he's played with Harrison Barnes, who's played primarily power forward this season. But I do like him off the bench in that power forward spot, and Mike Brown does too.
Frankie Cartoscelli is with us on the Folsom Lake Honda hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop. Frankie, why haven't they been better at home as they get ready for this road trip? I mentioned this yesterday. They had the second worst home record in the Western Conference out of the top 10 teams in the conference. What's going on at home, especially against teams under 500?
It's a head scratcher. I mean, the way that fans were shut out this year, it's been incredible. I mean, we get our box scores at the beginning of the fourth quarter. You know what happened in the third, and every game it seems like there's been that little sellout next to the attendance. They're selling out every game. They have one of the best home court advantages in the league. They need to do a better job of protecting home court. Simple as that. And I don't know if it's a matter of being comfortable. And they did have a good run where they won. They won 7 in a row and they won 6 in a row. They've been playing well at home in stretches, but then they follow those good stretches up with bad stretches at home and against teams like you said under 500. And I don't know if it's playing down to the competition. That to me could be the case, but they need to really ramp things up. And you kind of saw it against Memphis, who was down 2 guys. They were down John Morant. They were down Steven Adams, but they were kind of toying around with the shorthanded Memphis team, and then finally they brought the hammer down. They need to do that more often. They need to come out, protect Golden One Center, because if we want this team to make the playoffs, which I think we all do, I think a huge component of that is the Kings have a home court advantage like they did back in the 2000s, and that's something they need to have if they're going to make it. They need to have that home court advantage. They need opposing teams to want to avoid going back to Golden One Center if they make it that far. They want to have that kind of impact on games, and in order to make that happen, they have to take care of these games. They should be winning, and they've been playing well on the road. We're going to see if that can continue. They're 11-9 on the road. They're one of the best road records, or the best road record in the West, but that's great. You need to win at home, though. You need to take care of that home court.
I'm sure they've been asked about this home court deficiency. Do they have any explanation for it, or are they as perplexed as the rest of us of why they can't seem to get it together at home?
Yeah, I mean, you hear different excuses and different reasons, and I think that one of the things I've heard from a couple of players is, I think the comfortable aspect. They get comfortable, the crowd is into it, they get out to these leads, and then kind of late in the game when pressure is applied and teams get really physical, which is something I've noticed over the past couple of games, and that they've lost. Granted, I mean, again, they've played well overall over the past 10 games. I'm not going to let one game determine from that thought process, but it won't change my mind that they need to be more physical. And then when they get other teams that come in and they really put bodies on and they're physical down the paint, they fold. And we've seen the team get beaten in the paint all season long, and that's going to be a point of emphasis at the deadline, I think. But when that happens, they squander these leads and they fall behind and they kind of dig themselves in a hole. And to me, that might be the biggest difference is when you're at home and things feel comfortable and they feel normal, these leads feel normal, you get kind of complacent. And this team needs to kind of dig deep and realize that they're still on the uphill climb. This team hasn't made the playoffs in 17 years and they have a lot to prove still, but they've proven a lot already. They just need to keep it going, and winning at home is a huge part of that.
Frankie Cartoscelli, thanks, man. We appreciate you. Enjoy your weekend. We'll talk to you soon.
Guys, have a good weekend. Talk to you later.
Thanks,
there goes Frankie.